Hello, hello, Jason, my friend. How are you?
Yo, good, thanks. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm so lucky, man. Thanks for joining me on the live.
It's a pleasure. Pleasure.
Awesome. Nice to have you here, man. So let's quickly do some formalities. Guys, if you're tuning in, how's it? Hope everybody is well. And it's Easter weekend. So we're doing this a little bit earlier today because there's a couple of things we need to finish off. I've got meetings at 11. Usually we do this at 11, so by the way. So doing it a little bit
Yeah.
earlier than normal. Hope that's okay with everyone, number one. Number two, everybody, if you're tuning in, please let us know where you're tuning in from. So please just state your name, where you're tuning in from, and leave a marketing or business question or any question, philosophical question. We deep into philosophy. But mainly, yeah, I mean, if you've got any marketing or business questions, happy to answer them from our point of view. By no means, are we perfect in what we do? So please keep in mind that the advice and the perspectives shared is those of our own and those from our own experiences, and should be taken with a broad lens that you could potentially then process and utilize and implement any way you choose to do so. So with that said, if you've got any questions, drop them in the comments, guys, and then we've got a few people joining in already. That's cool. And then I'm going to quickly do a bit of an introduction, Jace. So
Yeah.
everybody, this is Jason, a good friend that we met about 3 or 4 years ago for the first time in 2021. And then we touched base in 2023, early February, March, and we launched our first business together. We went 50% equity from V8 Capital's point of view. You a shareholder, and there's someone else involved as well. And ever since then, we just had a great relationship. We've built one or two really cool businesses, and grateful for the journey this far. And I think today, if anybody's got any questions, we can obviously just answer a few things from our point of view. So, Jace, welcome to the show, man. And
Thank you.
yeah, nice to have you. So maybe just you don't have to do any formal introductions, but maybe just give people a 1 minute 60-second breakdown of your journey and where you are today.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah, I'm entrenched in. I've always been entrenched in the product game. I've lived in the telco space, fiber optic space, ISP space for the last 22, 23 years. So internet's played a real big role in my life and business, right? I think my love for internet and especially ecom started probably about 7 years ago, where we had our first businesses launched and quite successful, up until today, where Jandre has played a big role in, and I must say the team as well has played a big role in the businesses that we own and manage together.
I think the team has probably played the biggest role.
Absolutely.
I just sit here and look good. Yeah. So
look at, yeah.
So I think there's a bit of a delay.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that being said, I'm sure if you watch, our podcasts, Jandre and I, we engage in a lot of banter, so we try and make it fun. And there's another one due to come up really, really soon. But yeah, from my side, I'm glad to be here today, Jandre, and thanks for inviting me. And we should do this more often.
Yeah, man. Awesome. I appreciate that. So anybody got any questions for us? Jason, I'm going to start just a little bit and do a bit of a reflection exercise in hindsight, looking back on our journey. I think a lot of people might almost be misled by marketing gurus and marketing agencies and other business owners sometimes, that they might end up believing that the journey is very linear when it's really not. And even though you might see a business like one of ours who will indicate quite linear growth, what happens behind the scenes is definitely not like that. I think people look at the gurus on the internet, and I see this all the time. When I open my feed, there's someone claiming that they're going to double your business, triple your business in 90 days. And then when you've actually built a business and you understand the volatility of business, and you also understand the realm of digital marketing, then we need to understand that there's a very small probability of you experiencing exactly. That's not impossible. It's just very unlikely. The probability is quite small that you're going to have a very smooth, linear journey to success. That is maybe 5 to 10% of cases that we see. And even with certain clients that we have, someone might come through the door of V8 Media. And I'd say, honestly, transparently speaking, 10 to 15, maybe even 20% of people, companies will shoot the lights out from day one. So meaning that the moment you activate the system that we've built, which is a combination of meta strategies, Google strategies, email strategies, conversion optimization strategies, 20% of people's businesses will start to grow from day one. The other 80% is a little bit slower, a little bit more complex. There are nuances, and it's just not such a cookie cutter approach that people think it is. Now, with that said, I think, what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned or that you've experienced in the last 24 months with our journey together? Like, it's just some things that come top of mind.
Yeah.
If I question, what can you share with the people?
Yeah, I mean, there's many lessons that I've learned and we've learned together, right? If I had to reflect back, I've been incredibly busy on that website. Even so that, my fingers get burnt and you burn my fingers. So guys, let sleeping dogs lay, right? Don't go and make sudden changes to your business, specifically your online business, thinking it's going to make wonders overnight, where it's probably counterproductive. So do it in a calculated way. I think that's my first.
Sure. Like a pragmatic approach is like having a clear methodology of what you want to test, and then creating the environment to conduct those tests. I can reflect a little bit on our journey. Like when we started, like Jason is quite the technical guy, very technically inclined. And I think one thing I appreciate about you is you've got this insatiable appetite to just figure out new shit. And I think that's obviously one of the reasons why we keep innovating. And I think it's a core trait for any entrepreneur at the end of the day, especially when it comes to e-commerce. But now, reflecting back on what we've experienced, is that there are times when I panic because I look at the data and I see our conversion rate has gone down. And then I reflect back and I'd be like, Jason, what have you done? And you're like, we did this, we did that, or I haven't done anything. And I think we've learned the lessons is that a lot of times we get excited to test certain things, but the environment is not stable to test those things in. Even now, we were chatting this morning about something else we want to test, and you were like, do it now. I was like, no, it's Easter. We're moving into a long weekend, public holidays. If we had to test this now, there's just too many variables that would give us most likely the wrong data back. So you need to make sure that your testing environment is actually stable if you want to test certain things. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons that we've learned, is that we want to grow. Everybody is excited to grow, and we think that installing a quick plugin or this solution or that solution is going to get you there. And sometimes it is probable and possible that it can happen, but often you can actually be impacting your sales more than you think in a bad way. And the reason for that is that the bigger the store gets, like when you're doing 10 to 20, 30K a month, or maybe even 100K a month, you can most likely make a lot of changes on the site and get away with it. Because going from 100K and seeing a 10% drop is only, 90K. So if you had to make certain optimizations to the site and you lose 10% of your revenue, when you're doing 100K, then you're only losing 10, which means you're making 90 still. It's not bad. It's basically the same. But when you're doing 4 to 5 million a month on a store, and you make changes and your revenue drops by 10%, you've just lost half a bar, which means of that half a bar, you've most likely cut your profits by more than 10%. So it's so crucial to make sure that when you test that you have a strategic, pragmatic way of doing it, that it's calculated, and that your environment is also stable. At the end of the day,
if I can say that the larger you grow, that swing is bigger, right? So it may not even be 10%; it could be 20%. And because now you're attracting not 100, 200, 1,000 people a day onto your website, you're attracting 10 and 15,000 people a day on the website.
The impact is just so much more.
The impact hits harder. The second learning that and I see it every day, and I was, funny enough, talking to my sister-in-law on the weekend whilst I was in Cape Town, and she's like, there's this guy, and, he says we mustn't go Shopify, we must go his route, which is a different, it's like a proprietary kind of development shop software that he did. But looking at the promises that these marketers give you, and Jandre spoke about, get rich overnight kind of ads that you see. And it was blatant in the marketing pitch. And we know this person, she went to school with this person. He runs a successful business, but he's promising like overnight success with like Google ads, SEO. And where I'm getting at is, e-com is cutthroat, guys. It's not just like get rich overnight, otherwise everybody will do it. It's a real business. And, if everybody could, run SEO and be the top of Google and have, 100 sales a day, everybody would be doing it. But the reality is not that. The reality is it's a real business. It's just not brick and mortar. The struggle is real.
You know what I see, and there's two things I take away from that, is that on the latter side of the point that you've made, it's that a lot of people don't convert into business owners. So they are passioneers. So they have a cool product. They found a product online and they're starting to sell. The revenue is coming in, but they never transition into becoming business owners when the business actually becomes a business. So it becomes, an actual business from a side hustle. So you might start out as a side hustle or a passion project. And before you know it, you're making 20, 30, 40, 50K a month. And even though that's still small, the reality is it's now becoming money that you have to manage correctly in order to ensure that you keep making money. Otherwise, you can put yourself back quite quickly without knowing it. And I think a lot of people don't really transition, and they don't put their business owner hat on, and they almost don't want to take accountability for their bad decisions purely because and it's not that it's, it's just that they're naive and ignorant to how certain things work. So they either don't learn from someone else, or don't have a mentor, or don't have somebody who can guide them through all of these hurdles and struggles. Or it's a situation where they just don't want to grow into that role that's needed in order to keep growing the business. On the former side, you mentioned like some people say, don't go with Shopify, go with this solution. And the reality is like, it all depends. There's so many nuances and so many variables. And the conversation I usually have with people is like, well, are you an Android fan or are you an iPhone fan, not an iOS fan? And then someone would say, well, I love Android because it's a lot more customizable. You can do this, you can do that. And then someone else would say, well, I prefer iOS because every time I use an iPhone, it's just simple and it's gotten used to it and I love it. I download an app and it works and there's no issues. And the bottom line is it's very similar to your online stores too. Like Shopify, I think for a long time and still, till today, is the leader when it comes to simplicity. You click a few buttons, you've got a store, you upload your products, you can change your themes, you can play around, and it's quite intuitive to use. WordPress on the other side is, and WooCommerce specifically on the e-com side, is not. You do need a bit of a technical skill in order to get things going. And also, if by your ignorance, you can break things very quickly without knowing. So in a way, it's like, yes, can you build a very successful store on WooCommerce? Absolutely. Can you build a very successful store on Iquid? Absolutely. We, as a company, just prefer Shopify because it's easier for us. And we also feel for the business owner, it's easier to use. The data is more accessible. It plugs in with a lot of different tools quite easily. But if you are someone who needs a more customized solution, there is other options out there. So when someone says, don't go with this and do this, it's very rarely that they've considered all the needs and the nuances that your business actually needs. And it's most likely their own selfish agenda. Meaning that in this case, they say, hey, don't take Shopify, take my solution that's better than Shopify. Yeah, cool. So it's like, okay, cool. Well, you're saying it selfishly because you want to make money. What is the actual best intent for the person on the other side? Like, sometimes Shopify is just better for certain things. I look at my wife and she's a surgeon, and everybody that comes to her, that has a knee problem, she can potentially say, hey, you've got a problem with your knee, let me operate. And selfishly, she'll be able to make more money if she did that. She'll say, hey, listen, this knee of yours, I'm probably going to have to operate on it. But that's not ethically correct, because then she makes money, but most likely that knee could have been recovered or could have been rehabbed in some way, shape, or form with physio or some form of exercise plan. And it's really the same with marketers too. Like, you have to judge the intent. Is the intent being selfish, where someone actually just wants to make money off of you, and vice versa? Does someone actually have the best intent for you? And I think those are the people that you ideally, want to end up working with. And I think that's what also make partnerships work like ours. Is that we both have selfish reasons to what we want to achieve, but our selfish reasons are aligned, and we keep communicating. And how many times in this partnership has there been back and forth? I want to say healthy debates around what is best to do, and it's how you handle those conversations from a transparent and authentic way that can actually strengthen a relationship and strengthen the business as a whole as well.
I think we keep each other honest, and we keep our employees honest. We've nurtured all our staff, our partners, to be open and honest. Right? We look after our staff. We don't babysit, but all our businesses that we run, all our staff are open and honest, and it's one platform for us being, if you want to call it directors or whatever you want to call it within our business, and we don't have any titles. And we sit on the same platform as our staff, be it somebody in support, be it somebody in the warehouse. And that platform allows them to raise concerns. So, I'm not always on the ground and understand what's happening in the support environment, but they are. And they can say, guys, there's something happening on the website that's really not lacquer, And from a marketing perspective, your team and the V8 team can say, guys, we're picking up something, where something is not great, and it gives us an opportunity as a collective to address it and to pivot quite quickly to sort it out. And I think that's what brings me to the next point, choosing your team and, choosing the right people for you. And I can tell you, not everybody is the right people for you. And we've seen that and we've experienced it, be it in a healthy way or unhealthy way. But, it's very important to choose the right partners to go in business with. They need to be aligned with you. They need to be on the same page as you, and they need to be batting for exactly the same goal at the end of the day.
100%. Sorry.
Yeah. So exactly. Exactly.
I just wanted to pull this up from Armando. He says, hey, Jandre, if you had to market for a car salesman, would you run Facebook ads to a landing page and use qualification questions, or just run Facebook lead form ads with questions, and what would the budget be? So yeah, that specific question I can answer because we've done this many times for different dealerships. I don't know what the best existing strategy is. I have to chat to the team, but the last time I think we were still just doing lead forms. We were doing lead form ads. They work really well. You can do some really cool qualification questions now, if statements, logic statements in them. If you work and combine that with something like GHL, where there's automations, like WhatsApp and email going out after the engagement. On GHL, you can also do logic breakdowns. For example, if the lead has said this and this and this, it's highly qualified. If it's said this and this and this, it's low intent or low quality leads. So the low quality leads go to a specific call center, if you will, and the high quality leads can go to the salespeople who can actually have proper quick conversations about the intent. So it all depends on the back end of the actual order dealer. But I'd say like lead form ads with really cool qualification questions, and then at the same time, a really good automation system that can get the right quality leads to the right people as quickly as possible. That's really what we've seen work well. And then Sam says, going from employee mindset to business owner mindset needs intentional willingness to learn and adjust. Oh, yes, 100%. Like at the end of the day, like I've seen so many people build really cool businesses, but the business outgrows the founder. And I mean, I'm not speaking about an Apple that outgrew a Steve Jobs back in the day when he was still a little bit immature and had to come back and had a new level of wisdom, I think I'm speaking about small businesses that goes from 50K to 300K a month, and then that business owner never became the person it needed to be to grow it. And what happens is you got left behind, and you look at everybody else to help you. You look at the marketing agency to help you. You look at your suppliers to help you. You hire people to help you. And then, long story short, none of it works out the way that you wanted it to, purely because you never actually became the business owner that can work and deal with all those people accordingly, in order to handle the conversations and the challenges and the ups and downs and the emotional roller coasters of having a business. Like a business is an emotional roller coaster, period. It's just how it is. And you have to get better at handling the level of volatility that comes with running a business. And I think a lot of people just don't, and they become emotional, and then become overly anxious and fearful and stressed out, and they make bad decisions on the back of that. When you get anxious and stressed and you start to fear, you start making stupid decisions because you can't think objectively. All of that fear is suppressing your objective lens, and therefore the decisions that you think is good for the business is actually not. So
totally counterproductive.
Yeah, man, 100%.
I think let's just go to Armando. Sorry, Armando's asked another question over there. Do you want to just highlight it? It says also, exactly. So also, what were the typical bottlenecks when scaling? I'm not sure what Plush is.
So Plush is a cleaning company that we own in the V8 Capital division. But
perfect.
Let's talk about the bottlenecks in scaling, the business that we're involved with, because I think in essence, going from 0 to, 5 million a month, in 24 months can create a lot of chaos and a lot of stress. Maybe touch on one or two things that I think were the biggest lessons we've learned in that process.
The biggest lessons in our current business now from 0 to 5 million rand is space. So it's all dandy and well, starting off in a garage and then going, I'm sitting at like 500,000 rand a month now, and I've kind of outgrown my space. And then we go and you get a small little warehouse, which is 80 square meters or 60 square meters, and you hope to be there for the next year or two. And within 3 months, you're like, we sitting at like 2 million rand, and we outgrow that. And then we moved to a larger warehouse of like 200 square meters, and we sit at 4 million rand a month, and we go, we outgrown it. And that's the constant, right? And
people think those are fun problems to have. So this is the illusion, right? So people go, well, that's amazing. Like, yes, it is in theory. But listen, let me tell you, the stress of managing that is just as bad as the stress of not having any sales.
So moving the warehouse is a stress on its own, right? And moving like let's call it a few thousand SKUs from one warehouse to another. But it also, your business operation from a day to day is like, warehouse 1 can only take 3 people. Warehouse 2 can take 5 people. Warehouse 3 can take 7 people, 8 people, but you cannot scale your operation because of space. It's not only space because of product, it's space because of people.
People have to move and have
So now you actually like stuck in this dwell of, well, I've only got 7 people and I can only accommodate 7 people, so I can only scale what 7 people can allow you to do, but I actually need like 10 or 12 people. So that is a constant, right? bottling. So, I mean, we use bottling in one of our businesses, and bottling is always a constant. Importing, distributing lids is a constant.
It all just comes down to optimizing the back end, and what I mean by that is like
Yeah.
having systems and processes in place that can
Yeah.
run without the involvement of you every single minute, every single hour.
Absolutely.
And I think we've got obviously another shareholder who is operationally in the business daily, and that helps, and it makes a huge difference. And she's just amazing at what she does. But the reality is that
Absolutely.
as you grow, the problems that you have to solve gets bigger, and those problems you need to solve as quickly as possible if you want to continue growing. And solving those problems is really two things. It's a technical thing and a human thing. So it's like a process. Sorry, I mean like technical. I mean like from a process element, and then there's the human element. So you have to build processes that certain humans can follow, and certain things can be automated. So you have to ask yourself, what if we had to come up with a solution? What of it can be automated? What of it can be part of a system? And what percentage of it is dependent on the human in itself? If that makes sense, because the human can't do everything, and it would be so silly to have them to do every single thing of that process. And it's a matter of like, cool, what can AI do here for us? What can software do for us? What can the system do for us? And how can the human work with that system in order to create a higher level of efficiency? And then at the same time, what kind of person do you put in that role that can take ownership over all the things that has to happen beneath them? And I think those are, from an agency side, from an e-com side, from even the cleaning company that Armando is talking about, and Vickers were touching on some bottlenecks last week on the live. It's so crucial to have the right people in the right places, man. And bums in the right seats is really what it boils down to. Is like having the right people helping you solve the right problems. And
Exactly.
looking at that cleaning company, I mean, you can just think it's a resource versus revenue game. It's very similar to a marketing agency, right? It's a matter of going, we need more people in order to create more revenue. An e-com store, you don't always need more people, you need more product, and you need more money for marketing. So, but every business needs more of something to do more revenue. So that something might be more people, that something might be more marketing budget, that something might be a bigger space, that something might be more product, and sometimes it's more than just one thing in itself as well. So the question is, the bottlenecks will usually lie within what do you need more of in order to grow, and you can start to foresee what those bottlenecks then will be. On the cleaning company, it's having motor vehicles. I think we had one vehicle for the first 3 months. Then we got 6-7 months. Then we got a second vehicle. Now we have the third vehicle. And every vehicle needs a team. So it's like just normal everyday problems. Like we need another car, we need another 2 teams, then we can grow and expand. But now as you've got 2 teams, there needs to be someone who coordinates those 2 teams. Like, it's like who's going to coordinate which team goes where and when and what. And,
managing staff and
exactly, managing staff, and someone is sick, who's going to replace. Exactly. So bottlenecks is just like, that's kind of like things that you're just going to start experiencing slowly but surely.
So Armando is asking also about Sturbev, and I want to touch on that a little bit. So yes, I mean, hypothetically, Armando, we are building Sturbev. Sturbev is an unbelievable business. We saw major growth in it. I must admit that, it gets to a stage where, you have 3 or 4 stores that you're busy managing, and
opportunity cost.
Yeah, exactly. So opportunity cost. I was not happy with the current situation of our manufacturing. And I think we kind of pivoting how we manage that manufacturing process. The website still kind of is working. We haven't taken it down. It still does what it does. Are we pushing it? Are we putting resources into it? Probably not. No.
Yeah.
because we've got 3 other businesses that we would rather go and, you've got a business doing 50,000 Rand a month and you've got a business that's doing 5 million Rand a month. And which business do you concentrate on? That's the first thing. The second thing is...
you've got one that's doing 100K after 2 months. And then you go, well, this makes more sense.
Exactly. And then do you really want to build a business in the short term for a short-term non-sustainable solution of manufacturing?
I think we say this all the time. It's like, it's not getting excited about short-term money. It's getting excited about longevity and consistency. And the question becomes like, what businesses can actually feed you that level of profitability and revenue at a longer time frame? And what will be the input in order to ensure that output sustains itself? And I think that's kind of like where we are with Sturbev, in my opinion. Like, we're not really doing anything. And in my mind, I don't even know if we're going to continue with it because of the effort that we will have to put in order to get it to the next level. So we got it to level 1, and the reality is, okay, cool. Well, if we had to get to level 2, we're going to need another manufacturer, someone who can do this better, someone who can do that better. We're going to need this. And there's complexities. And the question is, do we want to solve those complexities? For now, maybe not. Maybe later, yes. But there are other businesses or other opportunities that have higher level of simplicity and a higher level of consistent revenue and profitability. And if you have so many resources, you just focus on that, unless you want to hire more resources and to give it all a go. But that's not where we are.
Exactly. But that being said, so Armando, I mean, that business could be offloaded. We could sell that business and the new business owner has the marketing, they've got the corporate identity, they've got the supplier, they've got the base, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, maybe it's for somebody else to go and take that business and run it, and they could probably run it, and put the effort in with the manufacturing team. And I mean, that business, the manufacturing team is there, it's happening, it is what it is. But as Jandre says, you've got a business doing 100K after 2 months, you've got another business doing 5 million a month. Where do we put our effort in? Is in the businesses that are shining at the moment and not the businesses that need more effort. That takes up resources of our staff to kind of make it work. So yes, Sturbev is there. It could work.
So Paul says, we've been in business for 30 years, only really starting online marketing now. Actually, yesterday we started about a 5K budget for online marketing. Would you say you can expect a rise in leads business, or do we need to up the budget to really see a difference? So Paul, nice to hear from you, man. And also congratulations on giving things a go. I think I said last week, I said that marketing on Meta or any social platform has long been a luxury for businesses, but I think it's becoming a necessity. That's just period what it is, if you really want to keep growing in the consumer space specifically. So I'm glad that you've taken that initiative. Amazing. Well done. It depends. There's a couple of variables that we need to consider regarding your question. $5,000 a month for a local business that has got a fixed location where people have to come to you, more than enough to start. More than enough. Nothing wrong with that budget, because you can only target so many people in your area because you are a fixed location that people need to come in to and buy or something from you, whether it's a product or a service. If you are a lead gen business where you go out to people, like our cleaning company, for example, we have a fixed location, which is just the office, but people don't have to come there because we go to people to clean their houses. That is a little bit more scalable, and you can obviously increase budgets for that specifically, depending on the areas that you want to target and how big your team is. If you've got a team of 4 vehicles, each team can have a specific budget if you wanted them to have, depending on the regions that you cover. If you're a business, for example, like a call center that needs leads and you selling insurance, then you can start with $5,000 and you can probably end up spending $1 million a month on marketing, because you're targeting the whole of South Africa, and everybody it's got a product market fit for anybody, depending on the type of insurance that you're selling. So the question becomes with how big is your market and how fixed are you to the location that you find yourself in? Is that a service that you're delivering there, or is it something that you can service online? So after you've considered all those things, that will give you an idea of how much you're going to should spend initially, or not initially, down the line in order to grow. But to start out, $5,000 a month is a good place to start for these reasons. Number one, you will make mistakes and a lot of the money will be wasted. So by spending $5,000 a month, you are not wasting money on the lessons, because if you're going to spend 20K or 5K, you're going to learn the same amount of lessons. So the question is, what is the least amount of money that you can spend in order to learn the most valuable lessons as quickly as possible? So that's really how I look at a marketing budget, is what is the money that we need to spend in order to learn the lessons as quickly as possible without wasting any money. And that's usually like $5,000 to $10,000 a month. If you're an online store, I'd say that's about $10,000 a month. If you are a local business, I'd say that's $5,000 a month. And now the question becomes, you should see an uptick in leads. But it depends on the campaigns that you're running. What kind of campaigns are you running? Are you running traffic ads to a landing page? Are you running lead form ads? I mean, if you're running lead form ads, you should see an increase in leads from day one, because that's just what lead form ads are all about. Someone clicks, they leave their details, you contact them. Now, whether business is going to increase or not is a different question, because it depends on how well you're actually managing those leads. A lot of people don't have really amazing back-end CRM systems and teams and processes in place in order to manage leads effectively. So the question becomes, do you have all of that in place? And if you don't, then I think it's very crucial that you spend the time and energy putting those processes in place and making sure they're getting followed on a daily basis religiously to the T, in order to increase the probability of converting more leads into actual customers or clients. So that's what I can say about that. But yeah, I think from my point of view, Jace, maybe we can touch on the e-com space. Let's talk a little bit about, maybe a couple of things that I think people can look at when it comes to their stores, that they can maybe whether it's software tools or plugins or stuff that you think that we've tested out, that you think in your mind has added value to the business. Because I think that's like a quick little hack for someone sitting there going, oh, I've never really thought about this and never really thought about that. What would be top of mind if I had to ask you, what is the one thing, if you had to start a brand new store from scratch, or let's say you were at $10,000 a month, what is the one thing that you think a store needs to implement in order to increase its probability of success from a plugin perspective or from a technical perspective on the website?
Yeah. Okay. If I had to think at the top of my head, I would start off with a high converting theme. So what I can tell you is that we use in our stores, we use specific themes that we know are high converting. Certain themes are just really not user friendly. They
might look pretty.
They might look pretty, but they just don't have the feature set on the back side of it.
The intuitive
excuse
flow.
Excuse my daughter. She's very friendly. But maybe she can answer a few questions for you in the next few years.
What's your philosophy on life? Ask her that.
Yeah, exactly. The second thing I would probably take a look at is implementing upsells and cross-sells. We've been very successful in an upsell or cross-sell, specifically buy one, get one. I think we're the leaders in the market when it comes to certain promotions and offers. And then thirdly is get in front of your partners, like your gateways. So, a lot of people just start a store and then they go and bring on a specific payment gateway, or they don't. They just bring on like an EFT type option. Now, you need to remember that e-com is a very untrusted medium in South Africa at the moment. It takes a lot to win over trust. And when people go and they jump onto your store, they want to see that you're using trusted payment gateways, and also payment gateways that fit their pocket. So like your buy now, pay laters. It's very important to choose your partners correctly, and to implement on that one. I'm just going through a few notes that I've made over here. We use a very specific review app. Now go and grab reviews from the very beginning. That is singularly the most important thing that you can do for your business, is to collect reviews. And that talks back through to the trust factor of your store. And then, from a communication perspective, we started off with, drop us an email and our support team will endeavor to come back to you within 48 hours. That's not good enough, guys. We've got AI intent on our website. We've got WhatsApp. So we've got a full live chat WhatsApp with support intent on it. And I'm talking bums and seats. We've got a full support center with 4 resources that sit there and do, social media support. We've got ticketing support. We've got WhatsApp support. And now we've also got telephone support. So if we had to break that down for the very beginning of somebody launching a store, get WhatsApp. A WhatsApp channel or WhatsApp support, which looks at abandoned carting. It looks at communicating with your clients on intent, etc. And you can control that yourself. We use an app on our store. It's called Bottlenecks. And I'm not going to hide any apps. It's one of our group companies. We use Bottlenecks, and Bottlenecks basically automates our abandoned carting. It uses verified meta numbers from a WhatsApp perspective, and it's trusted, right? We use Ferra from a review perspective. I've used it for years. I've used it for 5-6 years. Ferra is great. It collects reviews after X amount of time. You can go and collect reviews on the intent of giving discount codes, etc. So very, very important. And then the last thing I think that I personally use, because I'm quite technical, and it's a two-sided thing, is automation. So we use a store automation product, which allows me to go and run scripts and go and change 800 SKUs from offering. So if I want to drop my pricing by 10%, I don't go and put in a 10% promo code. I go and drop pricing by 10% with, a was pricing, with a cross out next to it. And we can do that on intent, right?
Yeah, man. Sorry to interject there, but I think it's crucial that people understand. Like, the biggest mistake people make on Shopify specifically, because of just the way that it works, is that you're going to have to update your prices if you want to run a special. I see the biggest mistake people make is that they create a discount code and then ask people to use the discount code to get the special. What you're doing is you're creating friction. You're creating so much friction unnecessarily. And
people don't read either.
And people don't read. So what happens is that they don't see that there's a code. They didn't see what the code is. The moment they get to the checkout page, they're like, but why is the price the same? This doesn't make any sense. This is a scam. And then all you did was, like, you tried to articulate yourself as best as you can, but there's going to be a percentage of people who don't see that, no matter how hard you try. Some will say, put a header on the top of the site, have a banner, send an email, do this, do that. You can do everything right, and there will always be a good chunk of people that don't read, and therefore you will lose out on sales. So the thing that you need to keep in mind is, when it comes to deals, specials, promotions on your store, it's important to make the journey as frictionless as possible to increase the probability of revenue coming back in. And I think that's just one thing that we've seen. There are certain times when you want to use discount codes, but that's specifically if you are giving a discount for a specific segment of the market and you don't want everybody to capitalize on it. But if you have a site-wide deal, don't do promo codes. It's just going to be a waste of time. I'm not saying it won't work. You will increase your revenue. You will make some extra sales, but it'll be so much better if you just remove a lot of that friction.
Can you do me a favor? So Martin, I agree. Yeah. So just before that, Martin said turnover needs to be more to be constant. Yes, it should be constant. It's not always the case, but if you joined in the beginning, we spoke about those variables. You touch something breaks, or whatever it is.
Turnover needs to be constant. Like, I mean, it depends on the business. Okay, like I want to say, Martin, I appreciate your insight. I really do, or your perspective there. And I don't know if it's a question or a statement, to be honest with you. But my take on this is that if you're growing a business and you're starting out, there's going to be zero chance of your revenue, a percentage of your revenue turnover being consistent.
It's
And I
never
say
consistent.
I'm speaking that to the masses, right? I'm speaking to the general person who's starting out with their businesses. Are there businesses that are consistent from day one? They are, but they are very, very much in the minimum and the minority, and you're looking at maybe a 5 to 10% margin for that happening. And and then the other thing is that even if you at our level, if we look now, we are on track to do 60 million a year, if not more, for a specific business, and realizing that like your revenue is still not every single month is the same. We need to understand that sales gets influenced by customer behavior, and customer behavior gets influenced by seasons and trends. So as much as you want revenue to be consistent, it might not always be the case. And for 60 to 70% of the market, it's not the case. For 20 to 30% of industries, it is the case. But I can tell you now, April and Easter for most stores are just not a good time. Most stores are down during this time. So a percentage of your turnover this month, for example, won't be consistent because it's Easter. And there are a lot of public holidays, and it's school holidays as well. So you're getting a triple whammy from a behavioral side of things. People now take their kids to the mall and they go buy the things that they would have bought online at the mall, for example. I think we need to understand that there are nuances to growing a business. Every industry is unique. Every business is unique. And there's an infinite amount of variables that you need to control in order to make your turnover consistent. And there's no good, I'd say it's almost impossible to have consistent revenue every single month unless you tick most of the boxes that your business needs in order to succeed. But most people don't. I think like if you look at most businesses, they grow like this. But when you look at 12 months, it's gone up, right? The growth has been consistent from a point of view, but not the revenue, if that makes sense. Like revenue, people assume that growth is consistent to revenue, but it's not the case because it depends on what time frame you're looking at. It depends on what angle you're looking at. It depends on from what viewpoint you're looking at. If we can say we're growing 30% year on year, that's consistent growth, but it doesn't mean the revenue was growing 30% every single month. Those are just the little nuances. I think there's an important question that you might enjoy answering, Jason.
Exactly. I was waiting for you to.
Why even start on Shopify in the first place? So many better and more cost-effective platforms out there.
Yeah, I'd like to take a stab at this one, if you don't mind. And my simple answer is, what's good for the goose is not always good for the gander, right? So I've used many platforms, WooCommerce. Shopify is constant. You don't have to babysit. So yes, it is more expensive, but I always tell people you pay for what you get. I have used WordPress, WooCommerce many times in my past, and I find that I spend most of my time fixing shit on that thing that breaks, more than actually being able to run my business. And it's real, guys. It's open source. You install it onto a server, and it's people develop against themes, and they make changes, and it breaks. And then you need to go and find a developer that fixes it. And you are spending more of your time as a business owner trying to fix something that breaks more constantly than actually running your business. Where I find that Shopify is slightly more expensive, but in the long run, probably not. And it works. It does not break.
Yeah, man, I agree. But like, I also say like, there's a client, ex-client of ours. Now we're just good friends, and we try and help where we can in terms of consulting. And yesterday he told me, I've moved over from Shopify to Equid, and I'm very happy. And I want to say to him, like, that's possible. That's great. That's amazing. Like Equid, for example, has improved their systems and processes a lot. The back end is a lot more intuitive. So it doesn't mean that you should stay on Shopify. It shouldn't mean that you should start with Shopify. It just depends on what your appetite is for getting started as quickly as possible, selling as quickly as possible, and having a seamless experience. And then how much do you want to customize? And how much are you happy to pay? Like, I'm happy to pay Shopify fees on a monthly basis. If we had to switch to Equid now, it would not make sense for the infrastructure that we're creating, for the team, for so many other people who have to use a new platform, all the marketing shit that you have to integrate. It just depends.
It's the ecosystem.
It's the ecosystem in itself, right? And I just like to follow the leaders. I like to back the leaders in the market until proven otherwise. So the leaders in the market. So Shopify have the most amount of funding, but of any business out there. So you do know that they're going to do the most amount of innovation, and you know that the most consistent, up to date with data. That's what data shows. And why not just make that choice, as opposed to everybody is trying to save a penny, thinking that that's going to get them to success. Like, I know Warren Buffett has a quote that says a penny saved is a penny earned. But as you grow as a business owner and as you get to different levels, saving 5 or 20 grand on your Shopify fee is sometimes, it's actually happily you'll pay that with a smile, knowing the amount of peace that you have, knowing that the server can't go down, knowing that the likelihood of it happening is very little, and knowing that it's integrating with all the apps and the tracking is working, the pixels are working, and the marketing systems are working, and the analytics are working. It's like, I'd happily pay that 20 grand to have that peace of mind. Where other people might look at it going, I'd rather save 20 grand. And I think that becomes a lack mentality. It becomes like, well, if you're going to save this 20 grand, what are you losing? And if you feel like you're not losing anything and you're saving your 20 grand, then good for you. But what I have seen a lot of people do is they move over, save 15 or 10 grand on Shopify fees, but now they have to do more other things. So now they have to spend more time doing certain things, or they have to hire someone to do certain things.
Lots of housekeeping.
Yeah, and I think, is that necessary? Like, for example, if you go over to WordPress, WooCommerce, like, that is running on your server, for example. So if you have an issue with your website domain and the server itself, then you have to address that with the tech team, and it's a ticket here and a ticket there, and then before you know it, it's Black Friday, and your load time on your site is slow because your server is not what it needs to be in order to handle the new amount of traffic. And now you didn't know that, you didn't prepare for that, and now you're losing out on the biggest sale of the year, and it's because you didn't know that this was going to happen. Where with Shopify, they take care of all of these unforeseen and potential things for you, because they already know what problems you're going to have in that case. That's why they have their own servers. So you link your domain to their servers, which means anytime that your traffic spikes, for example, you will be allocated resources to your server in order to handle that amount of traffic. And that's what I love. It's just like, when you generate a ton of traffic, most stores start to have server issues. And I think that's what makes Shopify so cool, is that it actually handles those issues for you. I remember back at Chrome days when we had certain sales, literally at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 5 to 10 minutes after the emailer went out, website's down. And it's just because of that influx of traffic so quickly, whether you've got an independent server or, a dedicated server, whatever they call it now, there's certain things that you just don't know. And then the tech team contacts you and says, oh, you have to upgrade your server. It's like, how long is this going to take? No, it's going to take 30 minutes to an hour, whatever. It's like,
and then it falls over.
Yeah, and it's just like
bases. I mean, you're dealing with like the real techie side of things in a nutshell. You're dealing with like SQL databases. You're dealing with like the bits and the bobs of what you should never ever have to deal with as a business owner. Or I think to cut a long story short, Martin, is you either want to run a website or you want to run a business. And in my experience is WordPress, you are running a website and it's great for like 50 grand, 100 grand. But when you're at 5 million a month and you have 13,000 people coming onto your website, there's a lot of dependency. And I think it's going to take up a lot of your time.
Yeah, I agree, man. Listen, it's time for us to shoot. I have to go. I've got an in-person meeting I need to get to. Oh, so Martin says, sorry, my input comes with a high level tech experience. And funny enough, Martin, I exactly wanted to say this. I
Yeah,
was like, if you IT genius and you have this kind of level of experience, then yes, WooCommerce would probably be great. You can buy a server on domains for 99 Rand a year or whatever, install WordPress and WooCommerce on it for free. And then if you have the technical ability to build that site for free, install a theme, make it pretty, then yeah, you'll save a ton of money. But not everybody has that level of capability. And then also the question becomes, do you want to stay the person who manages all of that stuff?
I was just going to say that. What
happens?
What happens one day, or when your business scales and you need to hand it over to somebody else? But guys, yeah, I mean, we are out of time.
Yeah, sure. Appreciate everybody's inputs and questions. Yeah, I really enjoyed the conversation, Jason. We'll do more of this as well. And then from my side, have a great Easter weekend, everybody. Enjoy the downtime. Hopefully you're spending some time with family. Much love. And then, yeah, all the best.
Yeah, all the best, guys. Thanks.
Cheers. Bye.